Michelle and Zara, how are we, girls?
We're good, Dyl.
We're really good. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's a long time in the making.
Have we ever all been on mic together?
No, I feel like we've been in your studios.
Normally it's
You've
off the
never
record.
invited us on.
Normally it's off the record chats.
I know. Let's bring them on the record.
Hey, honoured to have you guys on the pod. It's been a long time in the making, as we said. I still remember talking about sending anxious messages. Sometimes you got to go for it. I remember sort of like 20, I don't even know what the year was. Must have been 2018, 19 maybe. And you girls were obviously kicking goals with Shameless, doing your own thing. I think it was just you two at the time. I think you just hired Ree.
Yeah.
Like you just hired Ree. And I reached out just to get some lessons, I suppose is the word. Advice is the word I'm looking for. And we caught up in that coffee shop in South Yarra. And the world's been, well, your oyster since, but I've obviously learned a lot and admired what you guys have been able to achieve. So congratulations, firstly.
Thank you.
Thank
What
you,
a massive
Dyl.
time it's been.
And for you, I think what people probably don't know about our relationship is I feel like for the last 5 years, because in Melbourne there aren't a lot of people doing independent podcasting, a lot of people who have shows are with networks. You're really the only person who does something that's kind of similar to us. So we've all kind of constantly been shooting each other messages or phone calls being like,
Melbourne Media Friends.
Melbourne
So,
Media Friends,
yeah.
And albeit you guys are on a massive scale, but it's relevant to where we're going. And like, you know, with our teams now, to give context to everyone, Ree and your amazing team that works with you, and then Zach and my guys, like they're always in contact of like how we can do things together. And I think that's cool is like we are living in this similar world of trying to work it all out, but also in a nice way, like we're obviously not really competing against each other on anything.
No,
and to
exactly
be
right.
Like to be together.
Collaborative. You reach the boys, we reach the girls.
Yeah. Oh, well, we have some girls. We have some girls. Don't worry about that.
we don't have any men.
I think we had a survey come back recently with gender split, and it was 99-1.
It's getting worse.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's
I
so.
don't know if that's just our diehard fans. Like these are the people who filled out a survey. So I think the best result we've ever had is our Instagram following, which is 95.5.
Yeah.
I think
5%
that's
men.
Your
generous, but
Instagram
yes.
page is very good. It's very memey. Like I find myself with like the shit posting dumps. Like that's where I'm like,
I think that's what we get the men for.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's the only way I can get my partner.
we're a simple bunch. We're not hard. That's incredible. Speaking of that, 99.1, I think our Dyl Friends is, what do you think it would be?
For you guys. Well, when I went to your grand final breakfast last year, I was impressed by the amount of women there. But that was the first time I realised that you reached women.
I also know more women listen to podcasts than men.
Yes, they do.
So
65 men.
65 men, 35 women. I'm going to go 60-40.
Geez, that's big. No, it's 80 and 80-19. We're missing some percentages there. But it's 80.6, 19.3.
Oh, okay. That's solid though.
Still pretty good.
Yeah.
How the hell did you guys get to what you're doing? I think I know this journey, but I think it's a really important one because now, do you find this question hard answering it like 5-6 years down the track because people look for advice on like how to do things, but it's just so much different now to do what you've done? Like,
Yeah, I think it's probably fair. It's like definitely more saturated than was when we started. Like we started in 2018. We were like obsessive about podcasts at that time, but we didn't really ever intend to build this thing in the way that we did. I never had a lot of people around me who've ever run small businesses. I was never intending to be my own boss. You was kind of like...
Yeah, my dad had small businesses and stuff that he had when I was little, but he's the only one that was around me that did his own thing, I guess, or was self-employed. It's so funny because Zara and I look back and sometimes we do interviews and we get asked similar questions to be like, how did it get to where we're at now? And I genuinely don't know.
Yeah.
I think all it was that we genuinely have a passion and had a passion for podcasting. We loved the content we were creating. And therefore, we just kept adding to the business because we really loved doing it. And I know that sounds really earnest, but genuinely, I would do so much of what we do at Shameless Media for free. And I think that's how it's grown
Don't
so
say
much.
that too loud though. No, it's true though. I think it's like it's been like a few years of like small incremental and like instinctual decisions that you kind of look around and you're like, oh, we're here, but this was never like the plan. We didn't write a business plan until like 2 years ago. So we had no sense, but we started as writers. We knew we weren't going to be employed for a long time as writers because there's no work in journalism online.
Yeah.
And so we never even pursued podcasting because it was what we wanted to do with our careers. We just wanted other jobs in the media and thought this was the way to be trained.
But then we just found ourselves loving it.
Yeah.
Just found ourselves absolutely loving doing podcasting. And then I think with every new show, we've literally just created the shows we want to listen to.
Yes.
It's very, very simple
Yeah.
formula. we just go based on our gut and what we want to hear.
Yes. And that's how we're here. What an amorphous answer for you.
No, I'm not surprised by the answer, but I think it's super important because like a lot of the times people, if you have like I've always found this, like even I've made so many mistakes since like doing it, and the moments when I have ideas of starting something and you look at the vision then try and get there, it's like it always fucks up.
Yeah.
Versus like just starting and just seeing where it goes, almost just like letting it just fester into where it wants to get to, I suppose. Because you look at it now, like you guys have 16 employees, Forbes 30 for 30.
Yes.
It's impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's pretty sick.
It is nice.
It's going well. Like it's cool.
It's a funny one because I think what has struck us most in the last couple of weeks since Forbes came out was how much that Forbes 30 under 30 brand means something to a lot of people, and a lot of people mention it to you.
Because we were excited. Like when the email came in saying, hey, you've been shortlisted, can we do an interview with you and all this stuff, we were excited, but we didn't actually pay it as much mind as when we then put it out to the world and announced it, or Forbes announced it. What came back was really interesting. It clearly means a lot to like a lot of different generations of people. I think it means a lot to my parents' generation.
Well, yeah, I think us trying to explain to our parents or our grandparents or our extended families what it is we've been trying to do for the last few years has been funny. And I think even with brands, every so often trying to get us over the line with brands, because we are for so long have been quote unquote modern and like reaching an audience that maybe like the men who are making decisions aren't really across. It's being in the AFR and it's Forbes 30 under 30 that make people think, oh, okay, so they're an adult.
Yeah.
Like they know what they're doing.
It's like a legitimacy thing for them. It was exciting though. It was exciting. We snuck in at the very last minute. I'm literally 30 right now.
So am I.
I didn't realize it was what your age is as of like the 1st of Jan.
So it's actually quite strict. I was wondering
No, super strict. So it's what your age is the 1st of Jan.
Send
if
your
you were
ID.
under 30, you have to send ID and like, the whole thing. If you were 29 at 1st of Jan, you can make it in. And so we just snuck in our final year that we're eligible.
It's so good. Young men and women out there starting a business.
Yeah.
I think a really cool part of your story, my journey as well, but a lot of young founders is being said no to early. I don't want to re-harp because I know that you guys tell this story a lot, but a new audience, I reckon, may not have heard it. But just the importance of like coming through and sometimes being said no to is the best thing possible, and not throwing shade at anyone, just being like, it can get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, well, for sure. When we had the idea for Shameless, we were working at Mamma Mia. This is on the record. I don't know why I always took their name out.
You always feel weird.
We've said this a lot of times. And we're in a great place with Mamma Mia now. Completely respect. If anything, where we're at now has taught me so much about Mamma Mia and other digital media companies and, really given me perspective on how difficult they are to run. So we pitched Shameless to Mamma Mia. They rejected it, because I imagine they were pitched a million ideas all the time that they would have rejected. And then they said to us, you can go create it on your own, which was a total blessing. And so happy they said that to us, because it ended up working. We ended up leaving Mamma Mia and then growing Shameless Media to what it is now. It's a funny one because when we meet young people, I think they often they get rejected for things, and that tells them that their idea is bad, or they read into that no to say, oh, well, don't do this thing. It's not for us, so it's not going to be for anyone. And I think that's a real shame, because people need to really back themselves. And if you think you would genuinely love your idea, whether that's a product, if you would genuinely buy that product, if you have a hole in your beauty cabinet or whatever it is for that thing and you back it, it doesn't really matter if other people don't get it.
Because so rarely is it about the idea itself. I think that's the thing I've learned, is like so rarely is someone sitting there thinking, I'm saying no because it's a bad idea. They're saying no because they don't have time.
Time and resource.
They don't have resource. They don't have energy. They may not have money. But like if you have those things, if you have time and you have energy, then it's probably going to work if it's a good enough idea. But I probably didn't realize that at the time. And I think now we are pitched ideas all day, every day. And us either not being able to get back to people or saying no has nothing to do with the strength of the idea.
No.
It has everything to do with, well, we're running a business right now and I only have so many hours in the day and there's so much we need to do and I just have to focus on the things that we've already committed to focus on.
It's like, what's our priorities? Does a new idea, any new idea, no matter how good or bad it is, does any new idea fit into our priorities right now? Do we have capacity? If it's a no, the idea doesn't even get a look in.
No, exactly. So for us, I think it would be like two black and white or binary to say that no lit a fire in our belly that meant we were never going to stop. I think we were like a bit frustrated at the time, but truthfully, I think the reason we kept pursuing it is because we enjoyed doing it so much.
Yeah.
Like this was the stuff we were talking about naturally. Celebrity and pop culture were the kinds of things that we were talking to each other about rather. And also we were just seeing no one else talk about in the Australian media landscape. Like no one was talking to women between the ages of 20 to 25 about the things that they cared about. And so we just decided to do that, and us kind of continuing to do it only came down to enjoying it rather than being really pissed off and wanting to prove people wrong.
Yeah, and the irony of it all is being told no probably actually served us, even in a marketing sense in the end. Australians love an underdog.
Yeah.
So as soon as we told people, hey, this is the idea that we were told no to that we're now pursuing, it was like we had strangers behind us being like, oh, we love an underdog story. We're going to support these girls. So in many ways, it ended up being the best thing ever that could have happened to us.
And the reality is it wouldn't have, it may have gone really well, but it probably wouldn't have gone as well if it was with someone else anyway.
It wouldn't have. I think the things that we said with reckless abandon, because there was no one telling us to be brand safe, be conscious
Don't
of
get sued.
be conscious of defamation, be conscious of anything. No one was telling us that. And I don't think we were wild. But you just don't really know what you don't know. And I think you can build an audience because you can be a bit edgier when it's not sponsored and you don't have a big legacy brand behind you.
We could experiment. If we had gone to a massive network with Shameless for episode 1 to 20, we wouldn't have been able to experiment.
And that's the other thing we probably haven't said is it wasn't just Mamma Mia that said no. We pitched it to every network in the country.
Every network said no.
So
it's a great message. I love the message, but it's really funny now because I think about it a lot, and like being business owners now and bringing new talent in the door, and we're the same, trying to help young creators come through. But how funny is it now, like the shoe's on the other foot? Yeah. And like there's so many things where I was like, I want to start an independent company so everyone can own their thing. Then I'm like, well,
doesn't quite work.
If everyone owns their shit, how the fuck are we meant to run a company?
How do I
that
employ
doesn't
anyone?
really
How do
work.
I pay salaries?
So the people that I not hated, I'm probably a bit harsher than you, my vocabulary isn't as good, but the people that I really was angry about, I've turned into, but also knowing I want to keep some elements of that freeness of a independent company, that you want to work and have collaborative and buy-in from everyone. And you don't want to own what people do in essentially, but there is a reality to creating something that you need to make it sustainable.
Well, I think they say, strong views loosely held. I think over our career as well, I would like to think of it less as us just becoming the man and becoming the thing that we don't like, and far more being able to understand the context of everything, like why decisions are made, why decisions were made when we were junior employees, what a business needs to survive, to keep people employed, and then also as much as possible lead with as much empathy as we possibly can, and decency. I think I constantly come back to decency because I think for us in our team and in our jobs, we're not going to always be making decisions that people like, but as so long as we can kind of back those decisions at every point and be like, we'll be decent.
Are we being fair?
Are we being fair?
Yeah.
Even if people don't like it, that's kind of the only thing you can promise. But I agree with you. It's quite confronting getting to an age where you're like, oh, these ideas that I once had don't quite work in the real world.
Yeah, it's not the wild, wild west. Unfortunately, there has to be, I don't know, this kind of
I know
setup.
what you're saying, but it's hard to say.
It's hard, but also we have a rule, we had to implement this early on, that we don't take on other shows. Like if a show exists and they come to Shameless Media, we don't then license that show. Every idea under our banner had to come from mine and Zara's brain.
Yeah.
So that's made it a bit easier for us because we've had that since the beginning. So it's not this idea of people pitching. Like we have an auto reply to the Shameless Media hello address, which is like, we don't open, if this has a pitch in it, we're not opening it, we don't take it on, we're not reading it. And that's made it easier. But it is hard. Like it's a hard line to walk.
Really cool. And I want to like break that down for people just to give the context of the two of the differences and why we do it one way and why you do it another way. Like you girls have done such an incredible job at building this like beast of a show that, you know, is worldwide, millions of listeners. Like it is a lot bigger than the stuff that we do. You know, and our shows are still really big, but yours are just like crazy. So you've built this sort of machine that you can spin out your own things and own them, which is incredible. But we've had to probably get a bit more creative and be like, how can we leverage some other people, like grow together, but then also spin out our own stuff as well? Because like, again, this is probably nerdy stuff for the listeners. Like you have to have X amount of impressions to make X amount of dollars to then put that back into making more shows.
Yeah.
So how do you get that? Like if you can't grow your own show, you got to bring other ones in.
Yeah.
You got to like license with other things. And like we just try and get really, forever we're very like the same. Like we don't own Kick It Forward. We don't own the footy. We own a percentage of tradies and we own 200 plus. So it's like we have like different agreements with how we work. But I think it's just interesting for people to hear that because probably never spoken about it before.
You got to stay flexible. And truthfully, us building other shows was never the goal either. And what ended up happening was we got out of COVID and we were running Shameless and we had 2 employees at that time. And we worked out that as a business, this thing was very, very reliant on Michelle and I. And truthfully, at that age, how old would we have been? 26. The saddest part about it that still kind of makes me a bit mad, but like it's fine, is we got to 26 and we were 2 women trying to run a business and we're like, we can't continue this way if we ever want to have kids and have families. And so we literally had to structure a business around being women in their 20s building a business together. And that meant building out shows to make sure that our revenue was far more diverse and wasn't so reliant on Michelle and I. And it's only until the last sort of 2 months where I've looked at our revenue splits and thought, I mean, it's still not perfect, but like I cannot believe that 4 years ago we sat down and decided this was something we needed to do. We needed to build out more shows. We needed to hire people. We needed to build this thing out to make sure that if either of us needed to step away for a time, we could and the entire thing wouldn't collapse. I just even said to you as we were walking to the office yesterday, I was like, I just can't believe that in some ways we've pulled that off for ourselves. Like I just, it felt like we were scaling a mountain 4 years ago. I looked at it and was like, I have no idea how we're going to be able to do this. And we just put our heads down and we just started working. And then I kind of have felt like in the last month or 2 I've started to look up. And I'm really proud of us.
Yeah, same. I think the family planning stuff terrified us for so long. Like I think our conversations about one day hopefully becoming mums was so ridden with fear because we just couldn't figure out a way forward. Like it felt like it was going to be so hard, and it has been hard. I think the last 2 years have been the hardest that we've had professionally, but it's been a lot of building around ourselves to have different pillars, have different hosts, have different faces associated with Shameless Media, so that if and when that happens for us, we can do that and actually enjoy it. I think for us, we kept thinking, okay, say one of us has a baby one day. That's going to be so stressful because we're going to have a baby and not be able to step out in the way other women
How do we keep
can.
earning money? How do we keep things going?
And I would just go home and like my poor partner, but I would just like rage at him because I was like, I don't know. I mean, it sounds all silly now because you look at this business and it's such a great business. I love our business and we're really proud of what we've built, but I would rage and I would say like, I don't know if we'll ever be able to build this thing properly intuitively. Like I don't know if we'll ever be able to build this thing in a way where this can see its proper potential, because instead of building up, we're kind of building out.
Yeah,
like
we're fleshing out.
We're fleshing out rather than building up, and we're not trying to grow Shameless. We haven't been trying to grow Shameless for 2 years.
Shameless hasn't been the priority in so long, so it's been really lucky that we've held on to the audience we had. But I would say 90% of our energy has gone into what's the next pillar? How do we make that pillar? And by pillar, if people are listening, I mean, for example, we've got Stylish, which is a podcast and a newsletter and a social community. How do we make Stylish run on its own and be profitable without us? And that's really, really hard. Like you would know that, Dyl. It's so hard to do that.
It is. I love what you're saying about like building out versus building up. And again, like I know we're having this conversation today. I get goosebumps. Like congratulations. It's amazing what you girls have done, because from becoming a dad, like I know how hard it is to like, even just become a parent, let alone be primary caregiver at home. Like I've seen Juz transition through that period. Like it's a massive shift for a family, let alone, I don't want to characterize like if it's harder on one or the other, but it is a lot harder on the mum. Like if especially in that first 12 months, you not only have to, and incredible, you not only have to like have a baby on you, but like you have to give up a little bit of your identity too for a time. And I always hope Juz knows how appreciative I am of that, because it's like, I'd like to think everyone knows that, but until you probably go through it, you don't realise it enough, men in general. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm thanking anyone, but I'm saying it's an amazing thing.
Yeah. It's really interesting, I think, for us. It's like, it's been something where neither of us for a long time could get excited about what could be the next stage of our lives, because
we were so anxious about it.
I would like go out for dinner with friends, and if people would bring up the concept of having kids, I would burst into tears, which seems ridiculous and so dramatic and like so layered. But I would burst into tears because I was like, I genuinely was like, I don't see how this
I don't know if
works.
it's possible for us.
I don't know how it works.
Was genuinely how we talk about it. So I think it was almost that fear of going, is this even possible for us to become mothers and like have the business
and keep you going?
I think that fear actually fueled us for the last 2 years.
I think that's what fueled the growth.
And even like as a point, you know, putting aside the 30 for 30, as you said before, legitimacy wise, like that's incredible. But the thing you actually are proud of the most is being able to build out like sideways to strengthen the 4 pillars.
Well, as not business people, to write a plan and to have basically done it.
Yeah.
So if the plan that we wrote is insane to me.
It's really nice to walk into the office sometimes and see all the desks filled except for our own and be like, oh, we could genuinely not be in today.
Yeah.
And this team would fly because they are so good at what they do and they're all on board with the plan.
Yeah, it's
like
sick.
they're all with us,
Yeah.
which is really nice. That's like a big pinch me.
What's cool as well, like, is, you know, if we talk about just a business, say you just stayed as Shameless and you look at that model of like the Diary of a CEO, right? How, and I've heard him speak about, we looked at doing the podcast thing, but we're like, you know what, if we just want to make one show the best, that is actually how you can generate the most revenue for a business. Like there's no doubt if you just stay doing one show, in the short term, you would have earned a lot more money.
Yes.
But
it would have been a lot more profitable.
It would have been.
for
But
sure.
then that's the trade-off of then going, if we stop though, there's nothing else versus, you know, what we've been able to do, building out Everyone Has a Secret, Inherited, all your other series. It's been pretty amazing.
It is a really interesting point you make because I think there have been shaky moments I've had over the years where I'm like, what?
Did we fuck it?
What if was this the path? But then you remind yourself, of course it was. Like, of course this was the path. But when you've not done it before, you do second guess yourself all the time, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so far down this path. There's no going back now. There's a lot of mouths to feed at work, you know, and you're like, you have to
the stress on your shoulders.
stay
all the
the
time.
course.
Yeah.
And I think in many ways it would have been easier for us to just build the show and then go into radio.
Yes. Yeah.
I know, but your brain always
I
goes
know,
there. Then
and
you're
I was
like,
like, why
I'd
did
never
we take
do it.
this
I'd never
path?
do it.
Why did we do it?
It's so funny because looking back, I'm like, oh, that could have been a legitimate option for us, but we never actually saw it as a legitimate option.
But you have to back yourself at every point and say there were reasons that we made those decisions. And even recently, every so often, like, I'm a bit more staunch on this sometimes, but if you're like, why did we do that? I'm like, because we think about everything from every angle and we make decisions with all the information we have at every time.
Also, radio never wanted us.
And in fact, they still don't.
I don't want you, but if you're keen, we are willing to.
I want to be wanted.
Yeah. Being wanted's nice.
But you have to back your decisions. You have to. And I back every decision, I think.
Yeah, it's been the harder path. I think doing it on our own. I'm sure you can attest to this as well, Dyl. Rather than taking Shameless Podcast to a network has been the hardest path.
Yeah.
But I would say it's also the most rewarding one. Like
Definitely.
I don't think some of the sparkly, shiny moments would have come. Like Forbes 30 under 30, even though it doesn't mean the world to us, it's a nice thing to have. That wouldn't have happened if we went to a network.
That's fair.
And even, I'm not sure if you don't want this public, I'm happy to talk about our situation, but yours as well. It's like when we say independent, and this is sort of the work that we live, we get advice off us more probably from you guys than you from us, but around like we have our own partnerships teams. We don't work directly with people that we source that all ourselves, which, you know, to give context in the media landscape for people out there listening, like ideally the radio industry owns a lot of the advertising, but they take a cut, which I understand now is why they need to, because they've got hundreds of employees to feed. But I think one thing that really still to this day that you girls said to me in that first chat was, you know, there's a CPM that's like in podcasting, it's like $100 per 1,000 listens. I don't even know if that's what it is anymore.
Honestly, I don't even know either because we decided to ignore it
exactly.
and I never thought about it
and
since.
That's the thing that you said to me there. You were like, I was like, yeah, but the CPM's this and this is what sells. And you're like, that is their CPM. It doesn't have to be yours. Like you can create your own thing.
Well, this idea that everyone in the industry had to play by the same rules, which was like all of our listeners are worth the same. And in fairness, this wasn't us. This wasn't our idea. It was Rhea, head of business development, came in and she was like, I just don't believe that our community and the level at which they're engaged are worth the same as any other podcast in the country.
Like they're worth more.
They're worth more because they're so engaged.
They're cult.
And you work really hard on trust. And like you have to be able to like, you know, quantify that. And so we just sort of started setting our own rates and people paid.
And growing trust has been the hardest thing as well.
That's the thing. It's not easy.
With brands or community or
our
both?
community.
Yeah.
Because I think where you can charge more for brands to advertise with you is because you can point to the trust with your community and say, well,
they're gonna like it.
Here. Yeah, exactly. I think that's really built over like tiny little decisions over years.
And you can break it in a second.
Yeah, I think it comes back honestly to the decision to say no so often.
Yeah.
Like we've built trust because I think we've been very good at having good boundaries with our listeners and good boundaries with what we'll put out and what we won't put out.
It's the same as your community. Like they're so invested in you and what you're producing. It's like that's worth more than the average show.
It's really hard. And I know how, again, something I've learned from what you girls have done around like your values and community and the stuff that you do. And I think that we've always been really strong with that on this show in particular. Like I've always been like, if I won't use this product, let me retract that. Back in the early days when we're getting some things off the ground, there's been some things that I've done that I've been like, I wouldn't necessarily use that.
I would agree with that. I think some of the first brand sponsors we ever had on, it was because we were so excited to have a brand sponsor. But as soon as you've got any demand, you can start saying no.
Yeah. But I think going forward, it's been in that route of like, I'd only promote a brand that I'd like because I know my community will like it and then they will actually use the brand so that then there's like a flow that then they keep coming back.
Yes.
Yep.
But it's been hard and just transparent. I've never spoken about this. I'm having an anxiety attack even thinking about it. But like,
That's right, we can
there is realities to the business now. And like on this show, I've never worked with gambling partners.
Yep.
And that's a really big part of male advertising.
It's huge.
It's huge.
Male
In
advertising.
sports advertising as well, if you're reaching us, I know this because my partner works in advertising. It's blown my mind how much gambling accounts for a share of the market. It is a huge amount of money. If you're saying no to gambling, you're saying no to, I won't put a percentage on it because I don't know, but I can tell the listeners.
Honestly, I would say 80.
It's
a lot.
far bigger. It's far bigger. What you're thinking.
I'd have a better car. I'd say that.
And I 100%. And I think,
but I'm not the good guy because what I'm saying now is to grow, not through Dyl Friends because it doesn't fit this community.
Yeah.
But we have other shows in the network
that
for them to actually start and become a full-time project.
Yes.
They've been talking about gambling. And it's like, well, who am I then to say these guys can't do this for a career?
It's
like
really
if they want
hard
to talk about it and their community is there, even though it's not like I'm not promoting, it is my business.
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's been a really hard thing for me to deal with
makes
because
so
I'm
much-
like,
so
I
much
just
sense.
I think it's also really good to talk about.
It is.
Yeah.
I know you said I'm about to have an anxiety attack, but I think being honest about it is the best thing you can do. And it is really hard because I think the decisions you make as a business grows get far more complicated. And
There's more mouths
strong
to feed.
views loosely held, which is like, what is the trade-off here and what am I really passionate about and what do people want? Like, do people really want this content and are people offer joy in this content and how do I feel about it? And is it your place to tell other people they can't make money? I don't know. It's your reality of your industry is different to ours in that we aren't hamstrung by the same stuff, but when you're in sports media and when it's male spending, that's where the entire
there's different things though.
market
Like
is.
there's probably relatively different brands that you would find issues with in your world though. Like
I
it's,
think
like,
there are different brands with different levels of controversy, or maybe even not controversy. There are just different brands that people find divisive in different categories. Like, we were approached once to talk about animal racing, and we personally wouldn't do that because that's just not in line with,
It's not that you don't care about animals; it's just not something that you want to talk about. Is that what you
Yeah,
mean?
well, it's just to do racing products would just be, or any racing events would just.
you were
not
they wanted you to
Yeah.
promote racing events.
So you got to be discerning, but also I can understand in your line of work, it's hard. It's a big market
You know what?
share that the
Huge.
I don't know how to sum it up, but I think the big thing is what you said before. What was it like? Strong values,
strong views loosely held.
Strong views loosely held, and I think it's something I've always been. The big thing that I want to set up with what we're doing at Clubby Sports is you'll never listen to something in a show that is not aligned with the show.
Yeah.
And if the people that are in that demographic that are you know what, we accept this and there's no one going, why the fuck is this in the podcast, then it's that it does suit their audience. And at the end of the day, sometimes it wouldn't exist without it. So it's hard. It's a big conundrum, but
It's a big conundrum.
Especially, I think it's anxiety inducing when you're trying to make decisions, not just factoring in your own business and profitability or even having all the mouths to feed in your business, you're then also having to consider how will this be received by the public. Like there are decisions that come up as business founders that are stressful where you're going, okay, the practicality of running this business and keeping everyone's job stable coupled with how will this be perceived by the audience. It is something that we're constantly thinking about all the time.
It was funny. It wasn't funny, but it was something that pops up, and it was like they were talking about like this article that came out about like, you know, gambling in sport and them targeting creators and stuff, and I was like, sweet, cool, like, you know, I've never done gambling in my show, but my business does now, and it was funny because like I got named in the article, and I don't hold any, like, that's so fine because technically that is coming through the business. Like, I'm not seeing the profits of that, but it is funding some of our stuff. And I was like, for fucking 5 years, the amount of money I could have made.
Yeah.
I've
if
said
you're
no.
Be named now.
And then I was fucking named. I'm not even made. I'm like, what the hell? Like, this is so annoying. But at the end of the day, like, there will be people out there saying, well, you are doing it, so fuck you.
And that's fine. Yeah. And I think it is it's an interesting beast when you are front facing and trying to run a business at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you're, as Mish said, you're making decisions with two things in mind, not just one kind of thing in mind. And it is a really tough thing to do. We say it's a hard job. It's not the hardest job in the world.
The public's not seeing profit and loss sheets, or they're not like sitting in those quarterly business meetings with the practicalities of running a business. So it's very hard to give them the context that sometimes.
Yeah, also no one cares. It's boring.
Yeah.
But you want to keep a business alive and you want to keep people employed and you want to keep them happy and whatever it might be. But you're definitely making decisions in different ways, I would say, because you are front facing.
It is tough. But before going back to that point, we're saying about like, you know, building out, which is something we've been doing, you know, the other shows now and stuff. And I don't know if you girls have experienced this, but it's great when like Zach and Pato come up. They're like, oh, we've got a brand brief. I'm like, yes, who wants to work with us? And they're like, not you. We're going with the other guys. And they're like, I'm like, oh,
it's the best.
Shit, like, that's great, but like, like, why not? Like, what's wrong with the big dog? Like,
100%. It's like when people comment like, this show is the best show Shameless Media produces, and we're like, woohoo!
Yeah,
what about
ours?
No, but of course,
it is really funny.
It's great. That's the whole point. You're doing that. You're working so hard to make that happen.
So it's like sometimes Zara and I will walk away from something and be like, oh, we've done that thing of making ourselves redundant. Why does it kind of sting?
Oh my God, I said that to Michelle the other day. I said,
but we're like, you want to make yourself redundant, but then people are like, no, we want you though.
Like, I want to be redundant but special.
Yeah.
Redundant but wanted.
Yeah. We've got this new show, 200 Plus, that like those fans like hate me. Like, and it's my own like I wouldn't say they.
Like,
I don't know if there's
actually hate you?
Moff's a producer on the show, and they've like, my nickname's like Snake Eyes. Because they think that I'm just like this, like I'm trying to kill the show, which like I don't think they understand.
It's kind of a nice bit though.
It's a nice bit, but
it
like goes too far.
Dave? Oh, okay.
It goes too
like the
far.
Grumpy Dave thing from Fox FM.
It's a bit more violent than that.
Okay.
Like they had a live show recently, and they had like a voodoo doll of me, and were like
the hosts
putting pins in my eyes and stuff like that.
Jesus Christ.
The hosts
That's what I was told.
The guests at the show.
Both. It's concerning.
Okay.
But then I see them in real life and they're happy, so I'm like, I don't know if it's a bit or like I actually should be concerned.
It's like, is this a bit?
Yeah,
that's probably one for you to work out.
What's been your most, if you had to pick a favourite offspring of what you've been able to achieve? You've got Everyone Has a Secret, Inherited, the book club, obviously, Stylish.
Oh, it's hard.
And then you've got your breakout, obviously Glass, your series, Michelle, which I'd love to talk about.
Yes.
Would you say Scandal's a breakout, or is it more just a series in Shameless?
It's series in Shameless.
Okay.
Favourite offspring?
Are we allowed to say this?
Go on.
I think if I'm being really honest with the audience, the one that I listen to without fail, so excited to listen to every week is Everybody Has a Secret.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm really excited by that show. But I think every pillar we launch, it's kind of like people are going to have their ones. I listen to everything, but EHAS is the one where I really look forward to listening to that every
Is that the second
morning.
biggest?
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. The second biggest audience,
It's
yeah.
huge.
I think my interests will probably more naturally align with Stylish.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love them all equally though. But I think that show probably has hit a gap that Michelle, me, Ree had been wanting to fill.
Craving
Because
something
of the conversations we were having amongst ourselves about brand and marketing and fashion and beauty all kind of mushed together. So I do love that one. But I'm proud of the shows that we have and kind of the unique audiences they hit, because they actually do hit quite different audiences.
And when we launch a show, we're always thinking, okay, who is this kind of listener? And so it's nice to look at our suite of different pillars now and go, okay, someone who listens to Shameless podcast, they might also listen to Stylish, but also you could have two completely different kinds of women listening to those shows with different interests. And so I think we're finally at a place now where I look around at our network and I go, oh, this is what we had put down on paper when we did that business plan. Like this is really living out what we had always wanted to do. So that's exciting.
It's great diversity of shows now. Like you've got your podcast guest show, which we were inherited, which is great with Ruby.
Yeah.
So
she's
bit of another crossover for the
Here we
audience
go.
too is Ruby is actually dating Harry, who Harry's from Kick It Forward.
Yes. Podcast power couple.
Who's with us. And Harry's like probably my favourite guy ever. And I met Ruby, she came to our breakfast.
she's a delight.
Sweetheart.
She's a sweetheart. She's a legend. I think they were just in Thailand together actually for those.
Bali, actually.
Are you sure it wasn't Thailand?
No,
I was Bali.
definitely. It was
Yeah,
Uluwatu.
I would put all the money.
Uluwatu, Bali.
Why was I was thinking Thailand's a weird. Like it's not like
It's not a
Well, it's not as
popover.
close.
It's not as close.
I wouldn't be going to Thailand over Bali though. I'm a Bali guy.
They had a great time, so I hear. But podcast king and queen.
Yeah. So good on them. Then she started Inherited, Jess Fox,
Ariana Titmus
Titmus.
this week.
Yeah.
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 Sick.
We've got some good guests coming, but
It's exciting.
It's fun.
And then just to run through them all, Everybody Has a Secret with Annabelle. She's been, Annabelle's sort of been with you.
She was our
from the-
first, actually. Yeah, she was a casual employee
So
with us.
pre-re.
Pre-re, yeah.
Pre-re.
PR, is that how you refer to times in the office? Pre-re?
PR post-re.
Yeah.
Annabelle was like sort of early 2019 almost.
Yeah.
And
Almost
that-
within our first year.
That show's about like audience engagement, people coming on. You have like heaps of guests through it. Like TikTok-wise, that's been unbelievable growth
Yeah, it's
for
our
that,
biggest.
do you think?
It's our biggest social media presence of any of the accounts. Everybody Has a Secret's TikTok. I think it has 520,000 followers or something crazy. It was actually an idea reverse engineered around TikTok. I don't know if we've shared that before. We were sitting in a
It's
room
really
together
interesting.
talking about content
What's the
and
best
what
TikToks?
pillar, and we were saying how much these secret confessions were going off on TikTok and how much we loved them, but we wanted to actually see the podcasts about it, like hear a really fleshed out conversation about it. So that's how Everybody Has a Secret took off.
That was all Michelle. That's where her social media nous really comes in handy.
You are, and she's very
She's a
nousy.
social media
She's very
head.
nousy. Does,
Super nasty.
With it, because it's worth knowing, are you still like the head honcho of the Instagram page, or have you finally given some keys?
We have it. We have a
Yeah.
social media team now. I
But you
dip
like-
in and
She's
out
still
where I
got the
can.
keys
Yeah.
and sometimes she hides them.
Sometimes you're still dumping like some posts in there and stuff.
Yeah.
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 Oh, a lot of the stuff on Shameless particularly is still us.
Yeah.
We just won't be physically hitting the publish button.
No. A lot of, the social team is great, but I do need to relinquish the keys at some point.
Yes.
I love growing social media pages.
Yeah, you get a lot of joy out of it.
Talking of reverse engineering, we looking at one show. I said we're not going to do any more, but we're going to do one more. Just give it a crack. We're starting a cricket show.
Ah,
I hate cricket. Like, hate it.
okay.
Like, and
What a
like-
sell.
I think the sell is like such a reverse sell of like the boys have. It's almost like they're trying to prove me wrong in the sense
Yeah,
that they
nice.
can start a cricket show, which I don't think we can. And anyway, of starting a Instagram page, I always thought I had a really good idea, and I'm curious to think it's the same one as what you have done with your pages, but maybe you've just put them into this this beast of what we were talking about earlier and starting it out. But it's almost like start an inspo page.
Yeah.
So like we've started this page today of like cricket and just posting heap of cricket content through it. Try
Yeah.
and get as many cricket people in it. Then once you launch the show, you've got an engaged audience
love that.
of
I'm obsessed
what
with
the
that.
cricket show is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really smart.
Yeah, it's too hard to start a podcast page now without it. Like I'm in podcasting and I see it, I'm like, shut the fuck, like go
Oh,
away.
yeah, completely
Like, go
agree.
away.
Stylish
Yeah.
was running as a social media page and a newsletter for maybe 6 weeks before the podcast launched.
There you go.
So we did the same thing with that, trying to find a fashiony
Niche,
audience.
yeah. Even if
And-
it's like
yeah.
you'd rather like 200 people over 10,000 that aren't going to listen. Like
yeah,
you want the
totally.
real,
You need the diehards.
riches
Yeah.
are in the niches type situation there. What else is the plan? Oh, actually, I have a really good question for you guys. Sorry.
So humble.
Do you have? By any chance, and if you
Yes.
haven't, we'll just have to move on. By any chance, have you listened to Jack Steele's episode of The Imperfects?
Yes, I have.
Yeah,
Yes.
from Inspired Unemployed.
No, I haven't. I
Okay.
haven't listened to this one.
You and I can take this one.
What did you think? Did you relate to it at all, or is it just me?
The productivity thing.
No.
What was it?
So there was this it's embarrassing to talk about because it's not at the level of what they are at all. But I think it just shows in this world, the world of like, you know, if people do listen and they enjoy content, how sometimes still insecure you can be when it's looked to be like deemed successful by the public. And basically Jack Steele was talking about like the fear of becoming irrelevant.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's really interesting. No, I remember that part of the chat, and he was talking a lot about like it was a huge anxiety for him. And I have like kind of a two-pronged relationship with this, because you can't not want to stay relevant if you want to keep doing your job. Like, we can't just continue to do Shameless like this forever and assume that we will stay relevant. It's just like, it's too fast-paced of an industry. However, I do find my mental health is the worst when we are quote unquote more relevant. And sometimes I don't mind a little bit of irrelevance to kind of stay sane, where it's like, oh, people aren't thinking about you. That makes me feel better sometimes, because sometimes I feel overexposed.
Yeah.
And that also makes me anxious. So, I mean, it's all like quite self-involved. But
no, but often when Shameless podcast is reaching more people than ever, flying more than ever, your mental health is probably
easily
the worst.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Because people see you, and that's when they start sort of just like scratching a little bit at the surface. And they sort of come for things. And I think it's been a really interesting pattern to observe over the last 5 years, is that when things look kind of the best externally, it's probably when we might be copying it the most privately.
And doing the worst behind the scenes.
And so I have this like beautiful midpoint where I don't feel like we're completely irrelevant, but we're not like the center of anything, and some people are talking about us, but only the people that like us. But I completely understand that sense of like, it can be really tiring as well, thinking about like how to stay relevant. Like, it can be so clinical.
Yeah.
But that's why we just started going overseas to like New York to try and do something different, to look like we're doing something different, because we've been around for a while.
Feeling the need to be sparkly and new and different all the time. But it's funny, Zara feels that way, and then I probably go the other way. A lot of my job is in social media audience development. So when I see our audience stats trending down, I freak out. Like, I really lose the plot a little bit. And that's not healthy either. It's like we always just need to stay in the middle somehow.
We do need to stay in the middle.
That middle sort of real estate is quite hard to sort of buy into.
Yeah.
It's quite an elusive sort of spot to, like, I've found this, it's been a trend probably of my life for the last like 10 years. Like this, I sat in this footy thing once and it was talked about like an equilibrium, you know, like don't get too high, don't get too low, but it's like, it's hard to stay in the middle.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you're either killing it or you are a sack of shit. And it's like, where is like just normal life?
Well, I think that's why, you know, the highs are really high, the lows are really low. And for a long time, I have told myself to not take either side too seriously. Don't take the insults too seriously. Don't take the accolades too seriously. And then you kind of get to a point where, you know, you have a team around you and people say, well, we don't celebrate our wins around here. And it's like, oh, okay, well, we don't celebrate our wins because like sometimes when my inbox is popping off with people being mean, I try not to take that seriously either, but often that's the stuff that a lot of people don't see. And so with the Forbes stuff, you know, to be really transparent about that, I texted Michelle, was it that night? And I said, like, I find it really hard to know how seriously to take this stuff because on the one hand, you do need to sometimes sit up and say, I'm really proud of myself. But on the other hand, you have to say, well, this is kind of, it doesn't say much about who I am as a person. And like, you can take this stuff so seriously. And if you live and die by this stuff, you're in a bit of danger.
But also, if you're going to take on the stuff that says, oh, what a success story you are, do you need to also take on the stuff that says a little bit overrated though? Or like, you know, are you going to take if you're going to take all the good, are you going to take the bad that's out there as well?
I've actually learned so much from you guys. And I'm just like remembering it all now because I listened to another podcast Michelle, you did. I think you were both doing it. And you were talking about, and I've used this, by the way, and never quoted you. Like
I'm furious. What did I say?
I've used it so many times, and I've never ever quoted you on it. So I hope someone doesn't. Well, I'm telling you now. But you said you're using this example once of like being like versus dislike. And I know today we're talking about very niche topics in this industry, but I always try and say, like, listen to this in your own life, put it in your own circumstance, like get creative of how this relates to you because it all is relatable in some sense.
Yeah.
And you're talking about like how you wanted everyone to like you.
Yeah.
And you used this quote saying like who's your favourite person in the world?
Yeah.
So I'm going to do it on you two now. Who's your favourite person in the world?
Famous?
Yeah, like anyone.
Oh, like
that we
public
know,
figure.
that we know.
Like who are we big fan
Like,
of?
who's your favourite public figure
Oh, fuck.
in the
We're
world?
big fans of like authors that we love. So big fans of like the Sally Rooneys, Dolly Aldertons.
Yes.
Love
Zoe
them.
Foster
Give me
Blakes.
someone else. Oh, Zoe Foster Blake. I know her.
Yeah.
Okay. Zoe Foster Blake. Okay,
Yeah.
let's use her as an example. And you were saying you love Zoe Foster Blake. You love everything about her.
Yeah.
It's like, do you reckon there's people out there that don't like Zoe Foster Blake?
Yeah, or like don't warm to her.
Or don't
content
warm
as
to her or
much.
don't want to vibe with what she's putting out? And
Yeah.
people are like, yeah, of course. And it's like, well, does that make you think any less of her?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, not at all. So it's like the people knowing that, like, if, you know, Michael Jordan's my guy
Yeah.
and some people don't like Michael Jordan, it doesn't make me not like Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
I still love Michael Jordan. He's
I used to
sick.
think it would be like contagious that if someone else heard that there
Oh,
was like a
completely.
negative take on me and Zara, they'd be like, yeah, I also feel negatively about them, which is just not the way things work. That was actually, I forgive you, first of all, for never crediting me. But
thank you.
technically,
Did I misquote
Well, Michelle
you?
needs to credit her
Yeah,
psychologist.
okay.
I need
Yeah.
that's what I was about to say.
Okay.
I forgive you, but also that's from my psych.
Okay.
So I used to see a psych quite regularly when I was dealing with the rise of Shameless and also just general anxiety stuff. But she also said to me in tandem with that, think of your favorite person, but also think of the best documentary, book, movie, TV show you've ever watched, your favorite thing. Say Friends, like one of the most popular shows in the
Fucking
whole
hate
world.
Friends.
So you fucking hate it.
There you
Yeah, I know.
go.
Yeah.
That's the perfect example.
Yeah.
And we can use that for public figures to be like, that thing is for, or that person is for millions of people perhaps.
Yeah.
But also, just as many people might not like it. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, you're never going to win everyone over.
No, but I kind of assumed, I came into this early and I was like, oh, but I'm going to try.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to
Yeah.
try.
I'll be the one that everyone likes.
No, of course not. There are people out there that couldn't stand Michelle and I, and that's so fine. Like it's really strange to now be at a place where you're like, it's okay.
And it's genuinely okay.
It is genuinely okay. And the way that I also like, if I'm worried about this or if it kind of you have a shakier day and something might hit you a bit more, is the way I always kind of sleep a little better is knowing that like I really do feel like if I was to meet this person in real life, they might not think like you'll be my best friend, but I feel like we could have an okay chat. And I
think I was decent.
yeah, I do. And so that's a nice way to check in with myself to make sure I'm moving through the world in a way that like I am proud of. But that's really all you can do. I mean, people will find anything.
People will find anything.
So it's fine.
And it's also, I think TikTok's really taught me a lot as well.
Oh, TikTok.
The
I've had
person
to get
who's
off
the
it,
most
man.
loved today might be the most hated tomorrow. And then they'll come back around and be the most loved. Like TikTok moves rapid fire speed. And even this year, I've seen so many people become TikTok's favorite person. And then 3 months' time, they're TikTok's least favorite person. It's this massive fluctuation. But I've really learned over the almost 7 years of doing the job, it all kind of levels out in the end anyway.
Well, it does. So one of the things we say to each other all the time, I don't know if you will find this helpful, but we'll always look at each other and say like time is a flat circle. And I think running a business and doing this, you just see patterns all the time and suddenly everything becomes less personal. So like trends of what people are doing online, like people hate someone and then they love someone and then hate someone and love someone. Or even with like the business, there might be something that's kind of stressful and we're like, oh my God, this is like an us problem. This is like the worst thing ever. And then we'll fix it and then we'll see it pop up again and be like, it's that thing again.
Yeah.
And it's like all we're doing now is just looking for patterns, and it's a really easy way to kind of remove yourself from it and say, well, it's not my fault, but I can learn how to fix these things. And I think that's been really helpful looking at online culture and discourse as well, because it can be quite heated.
It comes in waves.
It comes in waves.
You go through waves of feeling like everything's amazing and then waves of feeling like, oh my God, people really don't like us or whatever it might be. Everything happens in waves.
Yeah. It's terrifying. Like, I think sometimes the fear of like waiting for it versus like when it happens, you're just like, oh, okay, it's cool. But like, I hate like the going, oh, is this gonna?
Do you need to get off social media sometimes because it's anxiety inducing?
I think just even like not even to do with like my platform or anything in general, but just in life. Like my worst thing you could ever say to me is like, hey, can we have a chat like tomorrow? And it's just like I'll just spiral.
Oh,
into
really?
Like,
Yes.
what
I don't know
could
why I'm
that
saying
possibly
really.
be?
I would also spiral.
Yeah, but like just like terribly. So I
Yeah.
don't know if that even answers the question, but more so, I think just that I always butcher this quote, but I had a chat with Jonah Oliver on a podcast once. He's a sports psychologist and probably one of the most like my most best chats I've ever had. Just like that, I was like actually learning from it.
Yeah.
Like, it was fascinating. There's so many quotes that are like here. I say this one every week, but like the price of admission is like a massive one where it's like, you know, if you want to do cool things, you got to put up with some like, you know, hard shit along the way. If you want to like do something,
The price of admission.
it's the price of admission. Like it's
I
a
don't mind
price
that.
of like
I haven't had that.
of like doing something cool is you've got to pay the price.
Yes.
Like it's tough. And the other one was, and I really hope I can get this. It's all, Moff, help me out here if I can't. But it's like humans would rather the fear of, I don't know. It's basically meaning like we'd rather the fear of the unknown is almost like worse than like
God, yeah.
just
This
the-
is like
yeah.
when you hear, not to take it
Yeah.
to this place, you often hear families with missing loved ones
Yeah.
say the worst part is that they're missing. We could deal with finding out, well, obviously it's horrific either way. We just want answers.
Yes.
And that's why the answer's so important to them so they can have some kind of...
You know how to deal with that.
Once
But
you know
can't-
the situation, you can act.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, I completely agree with you. It's a question mark is the worst thing ever.
Yes.
It's being left in doubt.
Yeah, 100%. Not to keep harping on those things, but I think something that's like even really interesting to talk about, and just even for my selfishness to wonder, it's like how have you always dealt with like, you know, running a business, public space, incredible loyal audience that, you know, aren't always can disagree with certain things you're doing. Like, has that taken a toll on like even relationships, like managing a successful business as really good friends as well? Like, how has that like all sort of happened?
I mean, I would say I think we've been really lucky, but I do think we've been very intentional about looking after our relationship over the years. I think we established a relationship very early on where we were very honest with each other about very small things. So small things didn't build up into big things and suddenly you've got 2 years worth of stuff you need to talk about straight
2 years
away.
of resentment, yeah.
No, like we've never had that. Like generally if something's on our mind, we'll raise it straight away. We recently did a bit of business coaching actually for no other reason than actually, you know, we've never really worked without each other. We've worked in each other's pockets for nearly 10 years. And
Become codependent.
we've become kind of and also I sort of said to Mish, like, we might as well do this when we're feeling really, really good.
Yeah.
Because it's way more awkward. It's like couples counseling. It's like, it's way more awkward if you're feeling bad. 100%. And then you're like, let's do this to fix. But I think we just went to be like, hey, we just like want to check in on our processes and our communication style. And like, if anyone else can sense that there's anything that perhaps could be elevated here. And she graduated us early.
She said, she was like, you don't need me, which I hate to pat ourselves on the back for this, but yeah we were just stoked to hear that.
How cool is that? Because like
Yeah.
anyone would just be like, yeah, no, like you see you two come in, like I want to keep you here for a while, like to just say like, no, you don't need me, go on.
Because we had this whole plan written out, and she
eight-
knew how
eight
much we were going to pay
appointments,
her and
yeah.
stuff. And after 2 appointments, she's like, "You don't need me. You probably need to keep talking about these 2 things a bit more because you're not on the same page about them." And that's it. And then she's
then
like,
she said,
"Call me if
"Call
you
me
need me
if
if
you-"
those conversations don't work
Yeah.
out." And that was kind of it. And it was kind of nice. It's also a really big confidence boost because it's like, well, all the things we've been doing, even though sometimes having hard conversations aren't always the most comfortable things in the world.
No, it sucks. Oh my God, at the moment it's so anxiety inducing.
But you have those conversations and you always feel, you have to make sure you feel.
This is another one of our lessons.
It's a Stephen Bartlett, I think. It's like you have to heal to 101% or else you haven't healed well enough.
Every conflict. You cannot walk out and feel 99%. If there's still 1% of like a niggle, you need to get back into the room and get to 101 and feel like you're leaving not just having healed it,
But
Super
feeling
clarity.
better.
1% more knowledge about each other to prevent it from happening again.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I've got really lucky with the relationship with my guys, but I don't know, maybe if this suits one of you two, you know, there's different dynamics in successful business relationships. Like stereotypically, there's one that sort of takes control and there's one that's more like creative or vice versa. And like for me, working with the guys, like I'm extremely, I probably get very emotional. Like I always struggled taking feedback as even when I was like playing footy and stuff.
okay.
So like for me, I've gotten so much better at it now, but I have like a 24-hour rule where it's just like no decisions can get made in the first 24 hours.
Yeah.
Because like what I want to say, not that it's like a fight or anything, but like if it's feedback on a negative sense and I'm like reacting, it could be, I'm like, let me just stew on this for like 24 hours just to like settle.
Yeah.
And then the other way I've even found it's worse is when I get really excited, I make the dumbest decisions because like the boys have picked up on it now. They're like, I'm like, we need to start a cricket podcast tomorrow. We're doing this, and like, come back next week and let's do it then. I'm like, yeah, what if someone else starts it? It's no one's ever like done it, but you just need to like think on it a little bit more.
Yeah. You and me are similar in that sense.
Okay,
I
you a
have
bit
this
more,
thing
yeah.
I
Has to
have
be
this
done.
thing inside me that goes, this is the idea, or like this is the thing, and it must happen
Yesterday.
immediately. Like yesterday is literally what I wanted
like,
out there.
You can feel it. You're like,
Oh, and it burns away at me until it's out. It singes me, but it's not a good way to run a business.
No.
Like I often say Shameless Media wouldn't exist if I was running it alone.
Oh, yeah.
Because I would just be making scattergun calls all the time based on, I'm very impulsive. I decide something's it and I decide I want to see that in the world yesterday.
No, but it's amazing because that's why you're so creative and incredible. But sometimes you do. I think I have to straddle the line in the business between creative and
maybe.
But you got to, because it's like, I do have a very unique job of kind of straddling the creative, but as well as the
Zara's
business.
both, yeah.
And you've got to take the heat out of ideas and you have to go slowly. And I do think part of our success has been trying to actually go relatively slowly for a while.
Channeling that, yeah.
And working and looking after things. Rather than scattergunning too fast, because it is so tempting. And we have scattergunned in the past a couple of things.
And it's been silly.
It's been so silly.
We've had a couple of failures, yeah.
Give me your
looking
biggest
back.
failure. I could beat you, I reckon, but try.
Well, and to be honest, when I say this is totally a failure on mine and Zara's part. This was nothing to do with anyone else involved. We decided we wanted to launch a reality TV podcast. And we launched it within like 2 days, 3 days.
Yeah, we launched
remember this.
it. Yeah, it was years ago, years and years and years ago. It was one of those things where we got wind that we wanted a certain deal. And the people that we wanted to deal with said, we can't make this deal with you until you can prove X, Y, and Z. So we were like, okay, well, we're going to do this and do it really fast. We'll do it tomorrow. And yes, we did put something together in probably under a week. The hosts were amazing, but we had no planning. And also,
it made no sense to have a reality TV show when we had Shameless, which discussed reality TV.
And also it was one of those things where it's like, we made a decision about money before we made a decision about content.
Yes.
And that kind of informed literally our number one key value, which is content over money.
Yep.
Because if you're making decisions with it the other way around, you're going to make shit content. 100%. If you make good content, the money will come.
It was so silly.
It was silly, but it was also one of the best things ever because that has informed every decision that we've made since. And I think all the good decisions we've made are around content over money.
And it's only in the time in between, the time from having the idea to actually bringing the idea to life, that you can actually go, you can look at it from every degree, like 360 degrees, to be like, does it make sense with all of these different factors in mind? And if you can keep saying yes to that, then it's a good idea. Otherwise, we've had so many ideas that we've then gotten a few days down the line and be like, wait a second, that actually makes zero sense for our business plan or for the content we already have, whatever.
And it's really hard in a fast-paced industry because
It's so hard.
You want to tell the team and you let them in rather than make decisions without them. But I also never want to tell the team something too early because I don't know if we're going to change our minds.
It's like the way I find that really relatable at the moment, and maybe other businesses do, is the say inbound versus when things come inbound. We used to then go, all right, we've got this like brief for something. How can we come up with an idea for it?
Yeah.
Versus now, what we're trying to do is almost, and I'm so steadfast, I can't tell you that we're doing this consistently at the moment, but it's a definite 2025 thing that like needs to be locked in and needs to become the most important, is being like proactive with ideas and like locking in on, we've got this concept we've done like 3 times, and each time we've done it, it's come up with something awesome.
Yeah.
And it's just like beers and ideas on a Friday. So we finish like an hour early, bring in a couple 6-packs, sit around a table, and everyone just like, it's like a little write, like just pitch your ideas of anything.
You have to create space
write
for
them
that.
down, and then when something does come in, we're like, oh fuck, that idea that we had,
Yeah.
let's put it to
Works
this.
here.
Yeah.
Versus like trying to, you like a 10-day brief, you're like, let's do this shit as idea here. Oh, we're not that happy with it. Audience doesn't like it. Went terrible on the reel. So like we don't get work with them again. So
Yes.
Yeah, we had a big experience, I think, this year with really learning that the idea needs to come
Before.
first. Yeah. I think you can really screw up by trying to make it, like it ends up being a bit square peg, round hole if you reverse engineer it. But with Stylish even, sometimes we come up with ideas that we go, that's such a good idea, let's now go to a brand and figure out how to do that because we're so passionate about the idea, not because a brand came to us and we went backwards.
Yeah, that actually happened recently where we had a whole series that came out of a meeting. So we just walked straight over to the partnerships team and I was like, sell this. Here, go.
Yeah.
Because it's really good.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and I'd listen.
I would listen.
It always comes back to, would I listen? Would I like it?
Love it. What's the like next for you girls? Like, is it sort of somewhat consolidating
It
the
is
build out block
consolidation.
now, or
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a really busy time. I mean, we're in New York, Glass came out, Inherited launched.
Yeah.
We're so ready to now breathe
Yeah.
again. And actually, we're even saying to the team today, work on the business instead of in the weeds of the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't been able to work on the business for a long time. So I think next year for us particularly, it's working on the business and consolidating and just looking after these shows and growing them before we go
What's next?
bang on a new idea, though I bet you will come back from the break after Christmas and be like,
always
Be humming to go.
yeah.
It's
It's a hard balance.
It's very hard. Michelle, can we talk about Glass? That was unbelievable. 3-part series. Can you explain to listeners like what it was about? How did it come together? Mon, who works here, is not in today. She's saddened because she wanted to chat to you about it. Obviously, the listener will know my history in this space as well.
Yeah.
Juz, really, she's a harsh critic and she reckons it was absolutely amazing. Yeah, how was the experience?
So it's a 3-part series that was scripted. It was kind of like it actually started as an essay that I was just been writing for myself about infertility. So I found out early last year that I might have one ovary. I essentially had a ultrasound technician looking just to see what was causing all this pain. I'd been feeling a lot of pain for years, which is so funny looking back because Zara's got endometriosis and had raised with me before like, I wonder, do you reckon it could be endo? And I was like, nah, probably not. Anyway, it was endo. It was some other stuff as well. So essentially this ultrasound technician was looking and you can't see much in these things. You need surgery to really find out. But this ultrasound technician found a couple of things that were concerning, a big cyst on my right ovary, and then they couldn't find my left ovary. So I left that appointment and they don't really tell you much in those things. They wait for your doctor to tell you. But I knew they couldn't find my left ovary because they had sent in their manager to then come look for my left ovary and were really poking and prodding me and it was really painful. And I got in my car and called my mum and I was like, I don't think I have a left ovary, which is really dramatic because a lot of people, your ovaries move around and it can just be hiding behind another organ, which is also something I just never knew about. So everyone around me, my sister's a doctor, my mum has worked in the health space a little bit and they were like, don't be dramatic, like you're probably fine. Wait till your surgery because I needed surgery to find out if I had endo. And then I had the surgery in the middle of last year and I don't have a left ovary. At least I have like remnants of a left ovary and they think it's because I had a similar cyst on that ovary and it exploded or burst and I didn't do anything about it and then the ovary died. We're never going to know. But yeah, that kind of kick-started this infertility journey because from there, once they found out the one ovary and the endo situation and a couple of other things, they tested my ovarian reserve and found out I had very low egg supply. And so we started doing IVF and then learned amidst the IVF process that Mitch has fertility issues. My husband has fertility problems as well. So it was just one of those things, I think, where I just felt like I was in a hurricane of sorts where I entered 2023 being like, I should probably investigate this pain. And I left 2023 being told by doctors the chances of us falling pregnant would be really tricky, like really difficult. We had never tried to have a baby once. It was so far off the agenda. We were like Catholic in our fear that if we had unprotected sex, we'd fall pregnant. And then we found out at the end of the year, stay safe if you don't want a kid. But we left that year being like, oh my God, we can't fall pregnant naturally. It's a near impossibility for Mitch and I to ever conceive naturally. And kids were not on the agenda for us. They were so far off the table. We thought they were maybe 3 or 4 years away. So it was such an experience to go through. And then you would know, Dyl, egg freezing, egg collection, creating embryos. It is such a emotionally exhausting but also financially exhausting process. So that's what Glass was about, that journey, I guess, from the beginning of last year up until July in this year.
I need to catch up with Mitch and have a chat with him if he ever wants to. But I've spoke to so many guys since like talking about this stuff with them and like just it's a super challenging time for couples in general, and especially like you're a couple when you're together talking about it, but you're also quite isolated in the sense of like you've got different bodies and different things happening. But I know what a cool world like it is now in terms of like podcasting and I suppose social media. We're a bit more like open with these things. Like for me, the relatability of like knowing you're not the only people going through certain things is quite hard, quite warming in a sense. It doesn't make it any better, but it sort of does. And
does help.
You would have had a lot of people come to you about that and reach out and
I think it's it's kind of everything to connect with people over. I was saying to Zara, it's kind of interesting. I feel like I didn't speak about it for a really long time. I kind of went to ground when everything was happening and then it really switched. I don't know when it was that I was like, oh, I need to connect with people.
Yeah.
Like I really desperately crave social media connection, even on this thing.
For sure. And I think it was one of those conversations that we have where you have to be really careful of the stories you tell in this line of work. And like once you tell a story, you can't take it back. And we had a lot of conversations back and forth about like, I feel like my job in this as your friend and your business partner, that two-pronged, to be like, here are all the things that could happen if you share this. And if you tell me 100% you're in, then like I'm 100% in.
Yeah.
But, and there was no negatives from it.
No.
Not a single one.
No, it was overwhelming when it came out.
Yeah. In a
But
beautiful way.
In a really beautiful way, and I haven't regretted it at all. Like no part of
There's
me
not
regrets
been
having
one
it out.
shaky moment you've
No,
had.
I
Yeah.
really
It's
really
amazing.
loved it. Like it's been amazing having it out and being able to talk to other people who go through it, because I used to hear people talk about IVF, and I'm sure there's so many people listening to this right now going, okay, IVF, like I've heard it's hard, or I've heard it's a challenging thing. It's one of those things that's just impossible to comprehend until you're going through it.
Yeah.
And until you're in the trenches of it and going through all the different emotions between you and your partner or whatever your situation looks like, it's its own beast, and it's such a unique experience. I think that's why there's such community in it, because the only people who truly get it are the ones who have been there.
I completely agree, and that's why, like, I commend you on how brave you are to share what you're going through, because I just couldn't. Like,
How did you guys go about it? Did you share once?
So it was really like Juz like really wanted. That's not the way to say it, but like she found a lot of comfort, I think, in like talking about it with friends and family.
Yeah.
Whereas I just didn't want to talk to like anyone.
Yeah.
But until, she's amazing what she did and how she did it. But yeah, I think it was just really challenging. I just didn't want to talk to anyone unless they'd been through it. I was like, what are you going to provide me that like I don't?
Yeah.
If you don't know, like, why would I talk to you about it? Like, it's just weird.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like, I just don't think you can help me. I would rather just do it myself, which I don't know if it's the right way or wrong way to.
I think it's relatable.
Yeah.
I've said to a lot of people, I struggle to talk to anyone about it who had children.
Yeah.
I found it really hard. Even like I said this to my own mum and my sister, them having kids made me feel like they would never get it, which might be unfair. I don't know.
You're allowed to have those like thoughts throughout all
just
of it,
how you
though.
feel,
Of
isn't it?
course.
Yeah.
And I think it's like a fallacy to assume that there's like a right and wrong way to go through anything and to say like maybe that wasn't the right way to do it. I think it was, if it was the one that kept
That
you
got you to
sane.
where you are now
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, sanity's hard. It's flowing in and out, as everyone would know. But that's great. What's I'll have the link in the show notes for that, by the way, because I know a lot of our audience would love to hear that. I'll put all of them in. Every single one. There's all the shows.
1,000 links.
Like, yeah, heaps of links. What's next? Any goals for the end of the year? You want to finish strong, consolidation, anything else you want? Personal goals. What are we talking?
We've
Anything?
got a busy couple of months.
What are you
Our rule
doing?
is we can cry in December.
Cry at Christmas.
Cry at Christmas.
I like the alliteration better. We're just a bit busy between now and we've got a few events we're hosting.
So just like run to the finish line.
Run to
type.
the finish
Sprint.
line and then
Yeah.
take a bit of a break
What
off.
events have you got happening?
We're hosting Dolly Alderton, the person you didn't know before.
What's her book?
Everything I Know About Love. You're 20% of females who follow
And good
you.
material and
good
ghosts. We're hosting
love
her.
ghosts.
We're going to
Yeah.
Sydney at Sydney Opera House doing Dolly there, and then back here at the Palais, I think it is.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff will be fun. We're like excited, but it will be
I've
a
seen this
busy.
book.
Yeah, it'll be a busy end to the year.
Yeah. couple of
Personally,
events.
what do we want? Honestly, I wouldn't mind switching my brain off. I wouldn't
Yeah.
mind.
It's not possible, man. I don't know about you, but I went to Bali recently and it was like the worst.
Yeah.
It was. Bali is incredible, but I went at the wrong time. I went like a week before. It was like the biggest thing ever, and I just couldn't. You got to
much
go
to think
when
about.
like when you've hit your finish line. Go
Yeah.
then.
It's really,
So-
yeah. I was literally, my partner was on the couch the other day. It was Sunday. And I was really struggling to switch off. I just felt my mind like going and going. And what I end up doing when my mind is going and going is jumping on my phone and jumping in my emails and my calendar, because weirdly that offers me comfort,
Yeah.
which is not a healthy way to
It's
move
not,
through the
no.
world at all. So people probably just see me sending random calendar invites out at 3 p.m. on a Sunday because I'm like, I'm on the couch and I got nothing to do. And I said to him, when you're sitting there and like you're on your computer like on Big Footy or something shit, is there anything going on in your mind? And he's like, no, it's just nothing. And I was like, how do I get there?
Yeah.
Like I'm wired and I would like to over Christmas not be wired.
Yeah. I think I am less wired than what I used to be. I think it comes and goes in waves though. But I want to just achieve more balance, I think. We've been running so hard for so long.
Yeah. Balance would be nice, and not being so wide. What's yours?
Both of those would be good. Yeah, I think the balancing's a funny one. I got a weird relationship with it. I haven't really worked out my view on it so far, on like how, if it's even possible. And I'm not saying that in terms of like a workaholic or anything like that. It's just like, don't know. I just find it really hard to switch off. Like, I in a non concerning way. I don't want you to be concerned about me, but I do struggle to be by myself.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I do too. I hate being by
Yeah,
myself.
like-
Can't even be by myself for like 4 hours without
Yeah.
having a crisis.
Saying like just like even I'd love to get to a point where I can drive home with like the radio off. Or
I can't do that.
like
Noise constant.
Do
I
you think
wake up
that's-
in the
yeah.
morning and put a podcast on so I don't have to, from the
Be in
moment
your
I
own
would leave
company.
the bed.
yeah.
Anyway.
It doesn't mean I hate myself. I just think it's like
No, I agree
yeah,
with you.
it's a lot.
I feel like I do like myself, but I do like to be stimulated.
Mm.
And I don't know. I did have a good conversation with my partner about it on the weekend, and he was like, I don't know why you're acting like this is a new thing. This is who you are.
Yeah, and that's a part of it
And I
too.
was
I'm
like,
sort of
oh,
like
true.
maybe
He's
it just
I think-
is what it
he's
is.
like, and I think this makes you really good at some things, and it doesn't make you very good at this today.
I think
And
what's
I was like,
happened
that's a nice way to put it.
with the world now about like how much we know about the brain and like everyone's got ADHD and all this thing, and I'm like, fuck, wouldn't it be better just not knowing that? You know what I mean? Like, I wish I didn't know all that stuff. Like, I feel like 10 years ago, no one cared. It was just like
you just think
you
less.
were you just were the way you were. But anyway, well, we can go down a rabbit hole there. Let's not disagree with modern medicine. I think that.
Oh, I wouldn't be doing that.
Nah. She said it. She said
I
it,
would
guys.
not
She
be doing that.
disagrees. She disagrees.
No, I would not.
Girls, thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for not only coming on the
you.
podcast. Thank you for being trailblazers for young people, and congrats on what you've achieved. It's been fantastic to be friends and comrades.
Media friends.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for having us, and thanks for always being a support to us as well and being
Yeah.
a friend to
Yeah.
us. We are
love ya.
very grateful.
Appreciatory. Cheers. Thanks for listening to another Clubby Sports podcast. If you like this episode and you're looking for something else to listen to next, I've added a link in the show notes to another episode that I think you will love. Make sure you're following us on Instagram at Dyl Friends, on TikTok at Dyl Friends, and if you want to send something in for the show or chat to us on the minis, any bit of feedback, please email me at mailbag@dylfriends.com. We'll chat to you soon, IllyXX. Thank you so much.